Early morning, April 11th, 2026. The Strait of Hormuz, the world's most dangerous 33-kilometer waterway, witnessed a scene that kept Tehran's top brass awake all night. Two Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, the USS Frank E. Peterson Jr., DDG-121, and the USS Michael Murphy, DDG-112, completed the first forced transit of Hormuz by U.S. warships since the launch of the joint U.S.-Israeli military operation, Epic Fury, on February 28th. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, immediately announced the mine-clearing operation has begun. Admiral Brad Cooper stated, "Today, we begin establishing a new corridor, and we will announce this safe route to the shipping industry as soon as possible." Immediately following this, nearly 20 hours of nuclear negotiations in Pakistan completely collapsed. On Truth Social, Trump wrote the sole conclusion of these talks in all caps: Iran is unwilling to give up its nuclear ambitions. Less than 24 hours after the talks collapsed, Trump announced a blockade order. CENTCOM subsequently confirmed. Starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on April 13, 2026, a blockade will be enforced on all vessels entering or leaving Iranian ports, while vessels using Hormuz to access non-Iranian ports will not be impeded. The international crude oil futures market reacted sharply within the first trading hour after the blockade announcement. U.S. crude futures surged nearly 8% to $104.20 per barrel, and the international benchmark, Brent crude rose 7% to $101.86. Before the war began on February 28th, the price was $67.02 per barrel. 6 weeks of war have already driven oil prices up by more than 50%. This is no routine maritime patrol. This is an endgame declaration with 3 pieces moving simultaneously: mine clearing, blockade, and nuclear redlines, executed in one breath. And right beneath the steel hulls of these 2 destroyers, hundreds of naval mines laid by Iran itself, mines that even Iran can no longer locate, are quietly waiting in the dark ocean currents. This is Tactical Trace. We don't blindly worship the tech tree. We only ask one question: does it work? If you believe that a 3-dimensional stranglehold consisting of naval mines, collapsed nuclear talks, and a blockade order is pushing the global oil market into a dead end from which no one can escape unscathed, please type Hormuz in the comments section and subscribe to the channel. Next, let's look clearly at every move in this chess match. To understand the situation in Hormuz today, you first need to understand exactly what card Iran is playing in this game and how this card has begun to backfire. The Strait of Hormuz is the absolute choke point of global energy supply. Under normal circumstances, roughly 20% of global oil and 20% of liquefied natural gas, LNG, must pass through this waterway, which is only 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, every day to reach the outside world. The vital energy import arteries for China, Japan, South Korea, and India, as well as the core nodes of Europe's LNG supply chain, all traverse this area. Since the war broke out on February 28th, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC Navy, has used small speedboats to rapidly lay a massive number of mines in the strait, including moored mines, magnetic/acoustic triggered mines, and drifting mines. The laying process was hasty and irregular, with no complete records and no precise coordinates archived. According to information disclosed to the media by U.S. officials, Iran itself cannot locate all the mines, much less clear them on its own. Consequently, the strait's traffic volume plummeted from over 100 transits per day before the war to near zero. But here is the most ironic part of the story. Iran never truly closed this strait. It simply set up a toll booth. During the war, Iran allowed certain vessels to pass, on the condition that they pay a toll of up to $2 million per ship. Relying on this mechanism, Iran maintained an average daily oil export of 1.85 million barrels throughout March. 100,000 barrels more than the pre-war 3-month average. It closed the world's oil corridor, yet allowed its own tankers to set sail as usual, while simultaneously extracting exorbitant profits from foreign ships forced to detour. This is the fundamental logic behind Trump's Truth Social post. Iran says there may be a mine out there somewhere, but what ship owner is willing to take that risk? This is world extortion. This is not a military blockade. It is a dual extortion system that uses uncertainty itself as a weapon, while charging those who pass through. The differences at the negotiating table were therefore irreconcilable. Iran demanded to retain control over Hormuz and use it to levy war reparation tolls. The U.S. listed this demand as one of its absolutely unacceptable red lines. U.S. officials clearly outlined 4 core red lines for the negotiations. Halt all uranium enrichment, dismantle enrichment facilities, and remove highly enriched uranium. Accept a broader peace framework including regional allies. Stop funding Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Fully open Hormuz without levying tolls. Iran yielded on none of these. The negotiations thus collapsed. The transit on April 11th was the first and most visible step in a multi-phased U.S. plan. The USS Frank E. Peterson Jr. and USS Michael Murphy are not dedicated mine hunters. They are equipped with the Aegis combat system, with radar coverage extending hundreds of nautical miles. The true mission of this operation was to forcefully map a safe corridor within a fully saturated threat environment, while sending a signal to Iran. The U.S. is willing to bear the risk in this deadly waterway. The real mainstays of the mine-clearing effort are the autonomous unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, about to enter the theater behind them. The most critical of these is the Knifefish UUV, developed by General Dynamics, which can navigate silently into areas where surface vessels cannot safely enter. It can pinpoint bottom mines partially buried in the seabed, establish a complete mine distribution map, and simultaneously allow the motherships to remain outside the boundaries of the minefield. After the 2 destroyers completed their transit, 3 fully loaded Very Large Crude Carriers, VLCCs, became the first commercial vessels to cross the strait following the ceasefire, each capable of carrying up to 2 million barrels of oil. This was the first signal of confidence the market was waiting for. But immediately after, the talks collapsed, the blockade order came down, and 2 Pakistan-linked tankers immediately turned around upon hearing the news. On the morning of April 13th at 10 a.m., the blockade officially took effect. The CENTCOM statement declared word for word, "The blockade will be enforced regardless of nationality, applied to all vessels entering or exiting Iranian ports and Iranian coastal areas, covering all Iranian ports in the Arabian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. But vessels transiting to non-Iranian ports will not be affected." Attorney General Todd Blanche simultaneously announced anyone purchasing or selling sanctioned Iranian oil will face judicial prosecution. Iran's response was equally explosive. The Revolutionary Guards warned that any military vessel attempting to approach Hormuz would be seen as violating the ceasefire agreement and would face severe and decisive strikes, warning that U.S. forces could fall into a vortex of death. Iranian Parliament Speaker Kalibaf posted a photo of gas prices at a station near the White House on social media, captioned, "Enjoy the current gas prices. When the so-called blockade comes, you will miss the days of $4 to $5 a gallon." The hardware to enforce the blockade is fully in place. The Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is deployed in and around the Persian Gulf, with F-35s and F/A-18 ready to establish an all-weather air umbrella. 7 guided missile destroyers are on standby in the Arabian Sea, and 2 are patrolling the Red Sea. Another Marine Expeditionary Unit and a 3rd Carrier Strike Group are en route. Trump also stated that allied nations will participate in the blockade operation and hinted that Gulf states have already begun acting. However, the UK has explicitly stated it will not participate in the blockade and is coordinating with France to form a broad coalition to ensure freedom of navigation. Australia stated it has not received a request to participate at all. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal, citing people familiar with the matter, reported that Trump is considering limited targeted military strikes against Iran to break the negotiating deadlock. J.D. Vance's last words before leaving Pakistan were, "We left with a very simple proposal, a way of understanding which is our final and best offer. We will wait and see if Iran accepts it." This is Tactical Trace. We do not blindly trust strategic declarations. We only pursue the true logical chain behind the numbers. Before we dive deeper into the ultimate trajectory of this crisis, if you find today's content valuable, please remember to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. We will continue to track the most critical battlefield decisions for you. Now let's calculate the true cost of this crisis. During the first trading session after the blockade order was announced, U.S. crude oil futures surged nearly 8% to $104.20 a barrel, and Brent crude rose 7% to $101.86. The average price of U.S. retail gasoline has reached $4.12 per gallon, a 38% increase since the war began. Goldman Sachs calculates, if Hormuz remains closed for another month, the annual average price of Brent crude will exceed $100, and it could reach $120 in the third quarter. Wood Mackenzie analysis. An average Brent price of $100 will drag global economic growth down from 2.5% to 1.7%. If it hits $200, the world will plunge into a severe economic recession, with global GDP shrinking by 0.5%. To cushion the shock, the U.S. and its allies have jointly released a record 400 million barrels of strategic petroleum reserves, while temporarily waiving sanctions restrictions on some Russian and Iranian oil. Saudi Arabia announced it will restore the capacity of its East-West pipeline to 7 million barrels per day, but the conclusion of all analysts is unanimous. These are only temporary bandages. Without reopening Hormuz, there is no fundamental solution. Right now, approximately 2,000 vessels are trapped in the Persian Gulf. The International Maritime Organization estimates that about 20,000 crew members are stranded, having drifted at sea in a volatile region for over a month without being able to disembark. The implementation of the blockade order leaves their situation even more in limbo. And the most ironic part is Iran's own bill. Through its toll charging scheme during the ceasefire, Iran exported an average of 1.85 million barrels of oil per day in March, reaping massive profits from the global energy panic. But once the U.S. blockade order is fully enforced, this revenue stream will be completely severed. By taking over control of the passage through a naval blockade, the U.S. has effectively used the very toll booth logic designed by Iran to entirely dismantle Iran's profit mechanism. The longer-term logic is even more brutal. For every additional day of blockade, global reliance on the Hormuz corridor decreases by a fraction, and the pace at which nations invest in alternative energy and alternative shipping routes accelerates. Iran's ultimate trump card is rapidly depreciating by the hour. This is not a strategy. This is a slow-acting poison of proactive, accelerated self-destruction. While everyone is assessing the U.S.-Iran geopolitical game, one country thousands of miles away is quietly watching all this with unconcealed satisfaction. That is Russia. With oil prices breaking $100, the West's price-cap sanctions on Russian oil exist in name only. Driven by energy panic, European and Asian markets are forced to compromise with Russian oil once again, funneling petrodollars steadily into the Kremlin's military-industrial complex, directly transfusing blood to the Ukrainian battlefield. The deeper dividend is this: the Northern Sea route, into which Russia has poured massive investments for years, instantly became the world's most watched alternative logistics corridor the moment Hormuz turned into a deadly labyrinth. At the same time, substantial core U.S. naval assets are pinned down in the narrow pot of the Persian Gulf, diluting U.S. strategic deterrence in the Pacific and Europe. Both Russia and China are carefully logging the deployment movements and reaction time windows of every single warship. Reviewing the entire chessboard of Hormuz, we can distill two absolute truths about modern warfare and geopolitical maneuvering. Rule 1. The weapon you cannot control will eventually become the blade that stabs you. Iran used naval mines and uncertainty to build a genius extortion system, charging the world while pressuring the U.S., but this blade cuts both ways. The mine layers lie at the bottom of the sea, and Iran's own toll system collapses with the implementation of the blockade order. More fatally, the tool it used to threaten the world, its nuclear ambition, ultimately became the fuse that blew up the negotiations completely. Any strategy that uses uncontrollable risk as its core bargaining chip is doomed to this ending. Rule 2. The true winner of an asymmetric war is never the one who starts it. Iran thought it was using Hormuz to fight the entire West, fighting for its own survival. But looking at the strategic big picture, it is merely working for Moscow and Beijing, bearing all the risks, paying all the costs, while the ones truly profiting from this chaos are the bystanders quietly laying out their plans and meticulously harvesting from the sidelines. This is the darkest humor of asymmetric warfare. You think you are playing chess, but you are actually just a piece being consumed in someone else's game. This is the equation Tactical Trace firmly believes in. See clearly who is bearing the risk and who is reaping the dividends, and you will have found the true winner of this game. Hundreds of rusted naval mines and a toll booth have not just blockaded a strait, they are redrawing the power structure of the global energy map, while simultaneously pushing Iran step by step into a strategic deep pit it dug with its own hands. Nuclear ambition, economic collapse, and international isolation. Three roads leading to the same destination. If you want to see through more of the geopolitical games and hardcore tactics hidden behind cold data, please be sure to subscribe to Tactical Trace, hit the like button, and ring the bell. We do not blindly trust strategic declarations. We only look at the final bill of physical reality. See you on the next battlefield, everyone.